We're going to Memphis. Memphis is
That's the next city.
Deeply troubled. And the mayor is happy. He's a Democrat mayor. The mayor is happy. And the governor, Tennessee, the governor is happy. Deeply troubled. We're going to fix that just like we did Washington. I would have preferred going to Chicago.
I'm sure he would have loved preferring to go to Chicago, but we all know what happened there. J.B. Pritzker and Brandon Johnson thought otherwise, you know. And that's why when I saw my friend named as part of the Trump communications team, who's President Trump has set to go across this country, talking about a lot of the issues and policy issues that President Trump is trying to tackle, I had to get him on. Mark Vargas is editor-in-chief of Illinois Review. He's also a Newsmax contributor and the former host of Mark My Words with Mark Vargas. He's a trusted conservative voice. He has spent years calling out the failures of progressive policies while offering a vision rooted in faith, freedom, and order. Mark also worked closely in the halls of power. He's helped secure many presidential pardons and commutations, and as a civilian, traveled to Iraq multiple times with the Department of Defense, giving him a unique perspective on what real safety looks like. Today, we're talking about President Trump's declaration that the National Guard will be deployed to Memphis, part of his broader Make American Cities Safe Again initiative. Mark, welcome to your maiden voyage on Detroit's Morning Answer.
John, it's great to be with you on this maiden voyage, and I'd love to have you as my publicist. What an intro. So very kind of you.
Hey, I meant every word, brother. But, Mark, let's start with Memphis. Why do you think President Trump chose Memphis as the city to launch this next step in making American cities safe again?
For starters, I mean, President Trump campaigned on securing our cities, restoring law and order, and closing our border. And he won that election by wide margins, which means this is what the American people wanted. But as it relates specifically to Memphis, I mean, who wouldn't want to secure Elvis's hometown for number one, right? But in terms of numbers and data and the FBI, but in terms of its size, Memphis has the highest violent crime rate in the country. Just think about that. They lead the country in terms of murder, robbery, aggravated assault, property crimes. And it's so, in fact, it's more dangerous in Memphis than in Mexico City. And it's more dangerous in Memphis than in Havana, Cuba.
Yeah.
But what's interesting is that it's so bad that you've got bipartisanship. You've got the Republican governor and a Democratic mayor who have said, send in the National Guard, secure our city, let's drop crime. Because the number one priority of any elected official, and you were an elected official, John, the number one priority is to protect the people.
Except in Illinois, right?
That's an exception to the rule.
You know, you mentioned Elvis, you know, because I really do believe Memphis, when you think about it, they carry both cultural weight and civil rights history. Do you think that symbolism was intentional? And how might it reframe the national debate on crime and justice?
Well, I still believe that President Trump is going to go into Chicago. But what he's doing is he's already secured Washington, D.C. I mean, I lived there for 12 years. It's one of the only places in the country where a United States senator or a United States congressman could get robbed on the steps of the United States Capitol. We saw the numbers drop like a rock in violent crime and carjackings. But I think President Trump's strategy is to go into other cities like Memphis, New Orleans, San Francisco, New York. And when he's got the data, and when the data proves that the crime has dropped in these major cities that have been controlled by Democrats for such a long time, and that the residents are safe, and that they can go out and have dinner, that they can have their kids play in the park, he's going to come back to Chicago and say, what say you?
Yeah.
Why are you prioritizing criminals over law-abiding citizens?
Yeah. And Mark, when you think about President Trump and how he's positioned the Republican Party as the party of safety and security and sanctity, while Democrats, they have become the party of pro-crime policy. Look at the Safety Act in Illinois. Look at what's happening in New York and California. How do you see this message resonating with voters heading into the midterms?
We're already seeing it now. The Democratic Party is imploding. And if you want data, just look at the Democratic National Committee and their fundraising numbers. They just reported one of their lowest numbers in recorded history. It's true that in the late spring, early summer, that they were exploring bank loans because they can't raise enough money to support their own operations.
Wow.
And why is that? It's because they've allowed the progressive far-left liberals like AOC and Bernie Sanders and Pocahontas to rule the party. And as a result, John Kennedy Democrats don't recognize their party anymore. And it's why 63% of Americans have an unfavorable view of the Democratic Party. And 81% of Americans believe that crime is one of the top issues, while Democrat leaders like Governor Pritzker and Mayor Johnson in Chicago are prioritizing criminals over law-abiding citizens. The Americans see that, their eyes are opened, and the Democratic Party is in total crisis mode.
And they've lost over, 2.1 million registered voters who just completely dropped off and left the Democrat Party. That truly is a sign that their messaging just simply isn't working, Mark.
It's not working. And while everyday residents, we're talking about families, children, babies are losing their lives to violent crimes, Democrats are wanting to promote boys playing in girls' sports, boys changing in girls' locker rooms. They're wanting, like in Chicago, they're prioritizing and allowing 67,000 dangerous criminals who are out on the streets because of no cash bail who missed their court hearing. They're allowing that to happen. They're allowing 90% of violent victim criminals in Chicago to be free. Why? Because they've never been identified or charged. The American people are waking up, and it's why the Democratic Party is imploding.
And you know what's so warm for me is to see a president who's he's not first of all, he's not backing down, Mark, and he's not afraid to speak to the issues that are happening in places like Chicago, Detroit, St. Louis, Memphis. If Memphis is the starting point, what cities do you think? I know you mentioned Chicago. What cities do you think are next in line for Trump's law and order strategy?
New Orleans, San Francisco, New York City. I mean, think about when New York City elects Mandami, who's leading in the polls by a lot. I mean, you've got current mayor Eric Adams, who's dead last, and he has a 70% disapproval rating.
Yeah.
I mean, he's rivaling Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson.
Yeah.
But we're going to see the National Guard deployed in these cities. And again, when the numbers go down, when the residents are safer, when they can finally go out in public and not be worried about being carjacked or robbed at gunpoint or caught in crossfire between gang wars, it's going to put Pritzker and Johnson in Chicago. It's going to put them in a really uncomfortable spot.
And Mark, and I think that's key right there, because I think what he was able to prove in D.C., that is, if you bring the real resources, allow cops to be cops, I think doesn't it upset or doesn't it turn over the apple cart that where places where you have a lot of these activist mayors and activist governors, that Trump just proved that the issue can be solved, and they don't want it to be solved. Is that the underlying issue here, that President Trump is actually trying to solve this problem?
He is. And you have the mayor of D.C., Muriel Bowser, who was a huge Joe Biden and Kamala Harris and Barack Obama supporter. Here she is praising President Trump for deploying the National Guard and securing her own city. I mean, that sends a clear message to every Democratic leader in every major city across America that you may not like President Trump personally, you may not agree with his policies, but your number one priority, irrespective of one's politics, should be to protect the people. And when the people feel safe out on the streets, when they can go to the park, when they can go to restaurants, what does that attract, John? It attracts businesses and economic development and revenue and tourism, something that Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson and Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker don't understand.
Now, Mark, you've rubbed elbows with some of the sharpest leaders across this world, actually. You've been to Iraq many times with the Department of Defense. You've witnessed life in a war zone. How does that shape the way you see the urgency of safety in American cities today?
Well, I just got back from Israel, John, where I was on a Newsmax delegation where we met with Prime Minister Netanyahu and President Herzog and Speaker of the Knesset, Speaker Ohana. And I told all of them that I feel safer in Israel than I do in Chicago.
Wow.
And they all laughed.
Yeah.
And in fact, the president goes, "It's true." And I've seen war zones. I've lived in war zones as a civilian. I didn't wear the uniform, but I was deployed to Iraq 14 times as a civilian. I know what war looks like. I know what it sounds like. I know what it smells like. Chicago is a war zone. Mm. Our major Democratic-controlled cities are a war zone. And the residents are victims of PTSD.
Yeah.
And they may not realize it, but they are, because when violent crimes, when armed carjackings, when armed robberies become routine and you can make jokes about it, when it becomes normal, you're now a victim of PTSD, because this is not normal behavior. This is not normal activity.
Wow. That is so true. And Mark, I know you knew Charlie Kirk when you saw that fatal day, and then you see some of the responses to it, Mark. Does it break your heart to see just where we find ourselves as a nation, where we can mock, demean, and disparage somebody who was out there really trying to change the lives of so many of our young people?
Yeah, John, I know you knew him as well.
Yeah.
I mean, he was born and raised in communities not far from, just miles from where we grew up. It was horrific. And John, you're no stranger to personal tragedies. Yeah. And what breaks my heart probably the most is the 5,000 college students that witnessed an assassination of one of their political heroes in person.
Yeah.
Oof. And that's going to take years for these college students to recover from that.
Yeah.
This is a time where they're learning, they're soaking in so much information, they're mirroring behaviors. This is just horrific. But we've seen over the last several weeks the best of America, and we've seen the worst of America.
Yeah.
And my heart breaks for our country. I pray for our country. And there's only one way to fix this, and this is a spiritual revival.
Come on.
We need a spiritual revival. We can't get any worse than we are right now. The only way to look right now when you hit rock bottom is up.
Yeah.
And so I think we're going to begin to see the beginnings of a spiritual revival in our country, and that Charlie Kirk's legacy is not about empowering college students, but it's going to be about saving America and bringing us back to spirituality.
Mark, I think one of the things that makes you unique and special, you've also been directly involved in securing some presidential pardons and commutations. And I think this is what sets you apart. How do you reconcile the demand for strong law and order with the conservative commitment to mercy and second chances?
That's a really good question, John. And where I struggle with is everyone deserves a second chance, and that includes murderers.
Yeah. Now,
I'm not advocating and saying that we need to set them free,
right.
But I think Erica Kirk had a perfect example when she said, "I forgive my husband's killer."
Yeah.
We need to know that we're all fallen, that we're all sinners, but we also have to send a message that there's consequences to one's behavior. And we need to hold them accountable, and they need to learn and experience the consequences of their actions. And when we become tough on crime, when we restore law and order, what does that naturally do? It drives down crimes. It drives down bad behavior, because they know now that there are consequences.
Yes.
In places like Chicago, John, you already know this, there are no consequences.
No.
You can rob a store, you can loot it, you can steal watches from a Rolex store, and what happens?
Shoot somebody.
Absolutely nothing.
You can shoot somebody and get released right away.
Yeah, 90%. 90% of violent killers are out on the street because they've never been identified or charged.
Yeah.
It is lawlessness. And by creating these types of accountability, this type of accountability restores law and order.
Yeah, I agree. And here's Erica Kirk with what you just said.
That man, that young man, I forgive him.
Powerful, Mark. I mean, to have the wherewithal, the heart, because I'm gonna tell you, I said this on yesterday. My baby brother was shot and killed before my son committed suicide. I have yet to find it in my heart to forgive the guy that shot and killed. He robbed and shot and killed my baby brother. I'm trying. I'm just not there yet. And for her to have that at that moment, at the actual homegoing of Charlie Kirk, it speaks volumes to who she is. And I'm actually going to be interviewing a lady about that right after you. What do you say about that, Mark?
Well, it goes back to your question about justice and mercy. I mean, this individual deserves the death penalty, but yet he also needs to know that he's forgiven.
Yeah.
And I think that sends a powerful message across the country and, in fact, across the world that you can be forgiven, but that's not an escape for what you have done.
Yeah. And finally, Mark, what's your message to Americans across this country who feel abandoned in unsafe cities, that real change is possible and that safety is still within reach?
That sunlight is the best disinfectant. It's shows like yours, John, where you're talking about these issues, where you're educating the voters, where you're sharing data and information, and that they're not alone, and that they have the President of the United States of America, the most powerful man on the planet, in their corner, who's got their back, who wants to restore law and order, bring safety to our communities, and more importantly, save the lives of young children and babies who one day could grow up and be President of the United States too.
Amen. And Mark, where can people follow you at Illinois Review? Can they follow you personally to keep up with a lot of the great things that you've done and that you're doing?
Well, my social media handles are all Mark A. Vargas, and follow me at IllinoisReview.com. And John, it's been an honor, and I appreciate being on your show.
All right, Mark Vargas. He's the editor-in-chief in Illinois Review, a Newsmax contributor, and former host of Mark My Words with Mark Vargas. Thanks so much for joining us today, my brother.
Thanks, John.
Go with God. Detroit's Morning Answer. We'll be right back.